Finding shiny Pokemon used to be one of the most grueling tasks for a Pokemon trainer. However, with the release of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, finding a shiny Pokemon has never been easier. While the base odds of finding a shiny Pokemon in newer games being 1 in 4096, this can be brought down to less than 1 in 1000, with methods like Meal Powers in Pokemon Scarlet or chaining battles in Pokemon Sword. And while I've spent a big part of my life hunting in these games, this time I wanted to truly challenge myself. With the odds of finding a shiny in Pokemon Fire Red being at 1 in 8096, I'm gonna try to become champion of Kanto using only shiny Pokemon. And to make this challenge even more hellish, I've added these additional rules to truly push myself to my limits. Can I beat Pokemon Fire Red using only shinies? Let's find out. While Squirtle is my favorite Gen 3 starter, I can't pass up on the chance to be able to own a shiny Charizard, so Charmander is who I chose to hunt for. This was my most tedious shiny hunt ever. I went over odds by over 12,200 encounters, but around 20,300 encounters and 28 hours later, I finally found myself a shiny Charmander who I called AA. I totally meant to do that. While AA could easily take out Pidgeys, Charmander is the worst Pokemon to choose for early game. The first gym leader, Brock's rock types, would wreak havoc on AA, not to mention the second gym leader, Misty's water types. So knowing this, I got right to work and started looking for my next encounter. While Mankey would have been the logical choice to go for, this was my first time playing Fire Red, so without knowing any better, I chose to spend my hours hunting in Viridian Forest. And while at first the encounters here seem pretty lackluster, trust me, I have a plan. I once again went over odds, as it took me over 13,000 encounters to luck out. But eventually, I was able to find a shiny Caterpie. I caught him and called him BB. And look, I know he isn't the most exciting Pokemon to find, but we have a lot of room for cool Pokemon later on. For now though, we just have one focus, and that's defeating Brock. And somehow, this little golden bug will be our savior. It literally takes me hundreds of hours to make these videos, so if you guys appreciate the effort I put in, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to make these hunts worth the effort. After a bit of leveling up in the grass, BB evolved into the shiny red Boomerang, who wouldn't be much of a help, but it wouldn't be long until he evolved into a beautiful shiny Butterfree, and here's where things get juicy. And not just because we found our second shiny Pokemon, but because I'm excited to introduce you to this video sponsor, Illuvium. Illuvium is an open world RPG, full of awesome and unique creatures called Illuvials. They're kind of like Pokemon. While this game is still in beta, it already has over 200 different Illuvials you can battle and capture. And if you love shiny Pokemon as much as I do, Illuvium is made for you, as they have these super cool visually enhanced variations of Illuvials called Hollows, and Dark Hollows too. Now, while they do look absolutely stunning, they aren't just pretty creatures to look at, as you can use them to battle not only NPCs, but real people too. It's a lot of fun. I really like the graphics of Illuvium, and its battling mechanics are awesome too. Each Illuvial has its own set of attributes, such as the long-range fighters over there and the melees right here. Even your player gets to take part in battle alongside you. If you'd like to try out Illuvium, make sure to register and download the game using my personal link in the description down below. While BB is vulnerable to Brock's rock types, he does have a superpower, and that's in the move Sleep Powder. He doesn't learn that move till level 15 though, and as the level cap of the first gym is 14, he would still have to be able to beat Geodude to unlock the move. But with a team like this, it's the only chance we have, so let's just see what happened. BB was able to outspeed and do a ton of damage with Confusion, and while it wasn't a one-hit KO, Geodude responded with a Defense Curl, which was an interesting choice to say the very least, but it was just what we needed, as the next hit wiped it out. I then replaced Poison Powder with Sleep Powder after a level up, and then took on Onyx. As I outsped here, I was able to get off a Sleep Powder, and this left me feeling confident. I hit Onyx with a Confusion and did over half of its health in just one hit, and I thought this battle was over, but as I went for my second Confusion, it somehow survived on literally 1 health and hit BB with a Rock Tomb, and while it wasn't enough for the one-hit KO, it also slowed him down, leaving him vulnerable to one more Rock Tomb, which finally knocked out BB. Rest in peace, BB, you did your best. While this was the end of BB's journey, it thankfully wasn't at the end of ours, as a Metal Claw was enough to KO the Stony Snake. My journey then took me to Route 3, where after whooping a couple trainers, AA evolved into this awesome shiny Charmeleon. Now, while this is a big upgrade to my team, he alone would not stand a chance against Misty, so knowing this, I'd need to look for my next teammate. I chose to go for the Dome Fossil, and while I wouldn't be able to get a Kabuto quite yet, I'm definitely gonna save him for later. My best bet for now was to head to Route 4 and take anything I can get. I started this next shiny hunt with high hopes, and this time it only took me around 4,300 encounters, but unfortunately I ended up finding a shiny Spearow. I of course did still catch him though and called him CC. While I could evolve CC into a Fearow before taking on Misty, I still wasn't confident we could take her on. So playing it as safe as I could, I once again made my way to the same patch of grass on Route 4, and once again going over odds at over 15,800 encounters, I found myself this shiny rat. And while this guy seems as useless as BB did earlier, with a bit of training, this guy could help us blast through Misty. I almost knocked it out with a scratch, but thankfully was able to catch it and call it DD. Just like I did with BB, I put DD through a rough training camp, taking on the toughest beasts that roamed Kanto, making sure he evolved into a sick shiny Raticate. And with my 3 musketeers lined up and ready to go, I took on my second gym challenge. I wasn't expecting anything too crazy from DD, but boy was I surprised to see this rat shine. Staryu went down to just 1 Hyper Fang, and while Starmie managed to tank 1 hit, it was no match for 2, and somehow, that was the easiest battle I had faced so far. With 2 gym badges under my belt and my rival's team getting wiped like they were level 3 Pidgeys, I was confident I could beat Lieutenant Surge. And although I did accidentally overlevel CC on my journey, I really wasn't worried about losing a flying type Pokemon for now, so I wasted no time and took him on. Voltorb wouldn't be a big struggle here, as an Ember did loads of damage, while Sonic Boom really wasn't an issue. The second hit took it out without any problems. Pikachu came out next, and while I was confident my dig would KO, he ended up going for a double team, which could have been a run ender, but I did get off my hit and was able to take it out. Raichu was a bigger issue though, as it repeated the same double team strategy, but this time I ended up missing my first dig. But while it managed to get off 3 double teams, I was somehow able to hit my second shot. I tried my luck with 1 final dig, but missed yet again, and being left at low health, I was forced to swap out into DD. I loaded up just 1 Hyper Fang with DD, and it was more than enough to earn us the KO and our 3rd gym badge. I then made my way through Diglett's cave and eventually to Lavender Town. And while hunting for a shiny in Lavender Tower would have been pretty cool, I had set my sights on something even more powerful, a Pokemon capable of destroying worlds, a Magikarp. This hunt took me so long to complete, and while the footage for this clip corrupted, here's what happened. I fished for literally 20,500 encounters, until finally I saw those beautiful shiny sparkles as I fished up this derpy looking goldfish. Wait, there we go. I caught it and called it EE. We've stuck to quite a trend here of catching underwhelming Pokemon who end up evolving to save the run, and it'll be the same story with my little fish, but against the grass type leader Erica, EE would be extra pointless. Either way, this battle would not be a challenge at all, so I took her on with an epic strategy, which was to lead with EE. While I wish I'd be able to sweep with him, the only purpose of sending out a Magikarp was to swap out into AA and get some XP training in. If that isn't badass, I don't know what is. This gym of course wasn't gonna be a struggle for EE, as he easily knocks out the Victory Bell with 2 Embers, and while Tangela is sent out next, just 1 Ember is enough for this guy. Vileplume actually tanked an Ember with ease, and somehow managed to get off a Stun Spore on AA, and after that, got off a heavy hitting Acid too, leaving AA low. AA did still manage to get off an Ember, and somehow it was a 1 hit, and it wasn't even a crit. And just like that, we earned our 4th gym badge. I then made my way to the casino to play some slots. Defeat this Team Rocket grunt. And not long after, it was EE's time to evolve, turning into this menacing red dragon. And after taking him on a test spin against Giovanni, it was clear to see how this guy would be an absolute menace later on. I continued my journey, first making it past Giovanni's mom, and then to Route 13, where it was AA's time time to shine and finally evolve into this beautiful black Charizard. I knew I had to try him out in battle right away, and what better place to do so than the 5th gym. Koga sent out Coughing while I led with AA, and somehow this battle was even easier than the last, as each and every single one of his Pokemon fell to a flamethrower or two. At this point, it had been a while since I caught my last teammate, and I have something really special in store for you guys. After making a little Nintendo magic happen, I happened to receive an Aurora ticket. And if you guys don't know where that leads to, let me show you. I made my way back to Vermilion City and via the ferry to Birth Island, all to hunt for this black triangle, or more specifically, what's inside it, which is a Deoxys. I actually lucked out here, as it only took me around 6,600 encounters until I finally found myself a stunning shiny Deoxys. And while I was planning on catching it with a Pokeball at first, with attack stats like these, I could not afford to risk it, so into the Master Ball it went. I caught it and called it 11111111. That sounded better in my head. Well, with such an overpowered beast on my team, I was confident taking on this 6th gym leader Sabrina. And while this thing looks super cool, it also hits super hard and KO'd the Kadabra with a single pursuit. And that's not all. Venomoth also fell to a single Psychic. And while Mr. Mime was able to tank the first hit, she for some reason decided to set up with a Calm Mind, which let me get off the KO with a pursuit right after. Alakazam would be a different story though. FF's defensive stats are as bad as it gets, and even a weak move would easily knock it out, so I was forced to swap out into EE right off the bat. He got hit hard with a Psychic though, so once again, it was time to swap out, and it was DD's time to shine. I went for a Hyper Fang, and with some insane stroke of luck, it ended up being a crit and wiped out the Alakazam with ease. Now, while there were only 2 badges left to go, I was struck with a tragedy, and while I forgot to record it, here's what happened. I was making my way to Fuchsia City, and without paying attention, I lost DD to a flipping trainer, and unfortunately had to get rid of him. DD was an invaluable member to the team, and while I wanted to hunt for his replacement in the Pokemon Mansion, the odds were not in my favor. This late into the run, I did not want to risk finding a bad encounter, and luckily, I had just unlocked the perfect place to start my next hunt, which is the Pokemon Lab. And remember the Dome Fossil from earlier? Well, it was time to restore it and find ourselves a shiny Kabuto. My luck has been terrible so far, and this hunt was no different, as it took me nearly 14,100 encounters to find this guy, but it was all worth it as I eventually found myself a shiny Kabuto. This green little bug looks awesome, and after changing his name to Good Game in Lavender Town, we went through a rough boot camp, and eventually he evolved into this sick shiny Kabutops. It wasn't long before I got to try him out in battle, as the 7th gym leader Blaine was our next challenge. Growlithe was never gonna be an issue, as just one Rock Slide was enough to knock it out. Arcanine was able to tank one hit, but did barely any damage in return. Even as I missed the next Rock Slide, Arcanine just wasn't doing much damage, and I was able to leave him super low after the next one connected. I didn't want to risk losing GG already, so I swapped out into EE. And I just realized this is the first time he's got screen time in this video, but I assure you, behind the scenes, he's been an absolute beast, and was in this battle too, as he swept through the rest of Blaine's team with ease. And with a team like this, I didn't waste a second of time and headed right to Giovanni to earn my 8th gym badge. I once again led with GG, and Surf absolutely swept through his Rhyhorn. And while Dugtrio was able to get off a super effective Earthquake, it did not matter, as Surf was an easy one-hit here too. Nidoqueen was up next, and a Surf was so close to being a one-hit, but as it wasn't, Nidoqueen struck back with a powerful Earthquake, but we did luckily survive the blow, and after a couple more Surfs, Nidoqueen was taken out. Nidoking was my last foe, and not wanting to risk GG's life, I sent out EE, and this was the perfect swap out, as his flying typing helped him evade the Earthquake, and then swiftly take it out with a couple of Surfs. And just like that, I collected my 8th and final gym badge. As this is a Nuzlocke, I didn't want to take a single risk against the Elite Four, so I'd still need one more teammate by my side before before I took it on, and this one was yet again gonna be a beast. I made my way up the back entrance of this Saladin apartment building, and it wasn't long before I had set my save point in front of this here Pokeball, and started my hunt for a shiny Eevee. I got super lucky here, as it only took me around 2,900 encounters before I saw a bright white Eevee in my party. I named him HH, and while I was hoping to evolve him into an Umbreon, I didn't realize that Fire Red and Leaf Green don't actually have day and night cycles, meaning I was left with either a Flareon, Jolteon, or Vaporeon. And while two of those typings are already covered, I bought myself a Thunderstone and evolved HH into a shiny Jolteon. This guy's pretty awesome and would surely help against the Pokemon League, but my party still has one clear weak link. And while Victory Road doesn't have the coolest Pokemon to hunt for, I know just what to go for. I made my way straight to the casino, and after hours of dedicated gaming, I raised the funds to hunt for, wait for it, a shiny Dratini. This hunt took me over 10,300 encounters, but it was all worth it as I eventually found myself this pretty pink shiny Dratini. I made my way to Lavender Town for the very last time and called him -1. I really hope these names make sense. And at this point in the run, there was nothing left to do apart from training him and taking on the Pokemon League. It wasn't long before he evolved into a shiny Dragonair, and together we made our way to the Victory Road, traversed through our final set of trainers before our last challenge, and evolved -1 into this beautiful beast of a Dragonite. With a team like this, I felt confident facing the Elite Four, and rightfully so. I think this has to be the best shiny team I've ever caught, and they're not only cool, but seriously pack a punch too. I led with HH against Dewgong and absolutely destroyed it with a Thunderbolt. Cloyster came out next, and while it tried stalling with a Protect, it wasn't long before it was knocked out too. Slowbro faced the same fate, but Lapras actually got super lucky and survived on a sliver of health. And although it got paralyzed, it also got off a Confuse Ray, which was bad news for me because Lorelei used a full restore right after, and I wasn't able to hit Lapras on the next turn. I was able to eventually take it out, but at less than half health. So as Jinx was sent out, I decided to swap out into AA and absolutely wreck it with a flamethrower. And that was the end of the first E4 member. The fighting type user Bruno was up next. But wait a minute, where are his fighting types? That Onix was washed away with a single Surf. I kept up the waves against Hitmonchan, but they didn't hurt him as much as I expected, and after a Rock Tomb lowered EE's defense, I swapped out into AA to finish this fight off with a Flamethrower. Machamp was his next one of choice, and after dealing some big damage with Fly, Machamp got off a scary face after, lowering AA's speed drastically. It did manage to get off a Cross Chop, but that did barely any damage, and one more Fly was enough to end his journey. Hitmonlee was next up, and his Mega Kick did a ton of damage, but not enough as Hitmonlee fell to just a single Fly. There was just one last Onix left to deal with, and EE was the perfect choice here, as a Surf was enough to put us halfway through the Elite Four. Agatha was up next, and while she has a team full of poison types, FF had this battle in the bag. One Psychic was enough for each of her Pokemon, and it wasn't long before this battle was over. My last challenge in the Elite Four was Lance, and this guy actually posed a decent threat. He led with a Gyarados while I sent out HH. As you may guess, this matchup was not a struggle at all. Next up was Dragonair, and I swapped out into Gigi. I went with a Rock Slide, which did some good damage, and it actually made him flinch, which let me take it out unharmed. His next Dragonair was a different story though, because although I managed to hit my Rock Slide, it got off a Thunder Wave, leaving us paralyzed. I was still able to hit through though and take it out with a Slash. Dragonite was up next, and as I chose to stay in, Dragonite for some reason went for a Safeguard, which let me get off a super effective stab boosted Rock Slide, dealing massive damage. And while the next hit would have surely knocked it out, his Outrage ended up being a crit, leaving GG finished. Nice try, pal. I was not gonna let that slide though, so I sent out FF to absolutely wreck the Dragonite with a Psychic. Last up was Aerodactyl, and with only one water type left in my party, I had to send out EE. I got hit by a super effective Ancient Power, which really didn't hit hard for a super effective move, while Surf was nearly enough for the one hit. Just to play it safe, I sent out HH, and with just one Thunderbolt, this battle was over. All that was left to do was take on my rival rival on the big stage, and here's what happened. Pidgeot was up first, and naturally HH was the perfect mon to lead with, as a Thunderbolt absolutely wrecked it. Rhydon would not be such an easy story though, so as I sent out EE to fly over its Earthquake, don't ask me how that works, I battered it with a single Surf. I was scared of Alakazam pulling off a one-hit here, so I sent out -1 and went for a Wing Attack, which was somehow able to one-hit KO, even after a Reflect. Executor tanked a Wing Attack with ease though, and retaliated with a heavy-hitting Egg Bomb. I then went for a Thunder Wave to paralyze it, and somehow survived yet another hit on just 6 HP. I didn't want to stay in for another turn though, so after sending out AA, I was able to take it out with a Flamethrower. Blastoise was a real threat here, so I swapped out into EE to tank a Hydro Pump with ease. I then tried going for a Bite, but as you can see, that didn't work out too well for me. So I did the only logical thing here and started setting up with Dragon Dance. And after just my second one, I was left at 7 health. And here comes my attack boosted Bite. Yeah, that didn't really work out. Rest in peace, EE. Well, HH did secure the bag though, as he took out Blastoise with a Thunderbolt. Last but not least was an Arcanine, and while I had no more water types left to help me out here, it was a 4v1, so I really wasn't worried. 1 Thunder Wave and 2 Thunderbolts later, it was game over. We had become champions of Kanto. If you guys enjoy me torturing myself to make these videos, make sure to leave a like on the video to let me know you want to see more. See you later.